Hello, I'm Kathy McCall from AARP here in Washington State. Thank you for joining us today and participating in this Teletown Hall with Washington State Governor Bob Ferguson. We wanted to take a portion of our time today to discuss the historic and unprecedented flooding in our state that we're experiencing right now. The governor will share our state's response, and resources will be available to you and your family if you have been impacted by this flooding and the winds. While the floodwaters will recede, the true damage to our communities and families will be revealed. As we move through the stages from an immediate relief response to recovery and rebuilding, we know it will take all of us coming together, and it could be years or more. Again, for those impacted, I hope you find the resources that are going to be described to you today helpful and of assistance as you and your family respond to this crisis. We will also be spending a portion of our call talking about some of the other issues that we originally were going to talk about related to healthcare costs, what's happening at the federal level, affordability, and also consumer protections that support Washingtonians and make Washington such a great place to age with purpose and dignity. So AARP on a national level focuses in on Social Security and Medicare. We know that. So again, we have staff from the governor's office that's going to talk about what we're doing. We're taking some bold actions to address some of the responses to the federal government. And we will talk about some of the issues that we are working on here in Washington State to help support in reducing the costs for health care and protecting consumers. So I wanted to go ahead and welcome Governor Ferguson. We have had such a long relationship with not only Governor Ferguson when he was Attorney General, but also in his role as such a fierce consumer protection advocate. We are deeply appreciative of the governor for being here today. We know that all of this emergency response is consuming probably 95, 99, maybe 110% of your time. So again, thank you, Governor Ferguson, and please stay on the call because we will continue to take your calls during this time. But if you would like to share a story, if you have been impacted by this flooding, press *3 on your telephone keypad. Also, if you're interested in asking a question or sharing examples of the challenges you are facing as an older adult to afford the increasing costs from everything from healthcare, prescription drugs, insurance, food, utilities, please also press *3 on your telephone keypad to ask a question. *3 on your telephone keypad will put you into a queue where you will talk to an AARP staff person who will hear your question and put you into the queue to ask a question related to either the current challenges with the flood that we are experiencing right now and or other issues that impact you as an older adult, whether you're on a fixed income or still working. What are some of the challenges that you're facing? And also, be sure to stay on the line because we will have plenty of resources and information to share with you as we continue through this call. But without further ado, I would like to graciously and with much appreciation introduce our Governor, Bob Ferguson.
Oh, thank you so much for that kind introduction. I so appreciate it. And it's great to be back on one of these conversations with AARP. And you're right, my time as Attorney General, we did a number of these conversations like this, over the phone. And we also did a number of them in person around the state as well. So I have fond memories of those events as we, did our best working together to, keep Washingtonians informed of different scams that are out there, how to protect their personal information. And so I just have, such a great deal of respect, Kathy, for ARP and all the work that you all do. It makes a huge difference for so many Washingtonians. I'm deeply grateful. So I always enjoy the opportunity to chat with you and Washingtonians as well. Thanks for understanding. The original plan, everybody, was for me to stay on for the duration of this call. I just won't be able to do that as some of the situation is with the flooding is, it's pretty dire. There's no two ways around it. But I do want to start by saying, to give you a sense of how unpredictable it is, literally just in the last hour, I believe, we had down in Tukwila, there's what's being described as life-threatening flash flooding along the east side of the Green River. There's been a failure there in the levee system, and so we've got National Guard folks down there, lots of first responders. So first of all, if you are in that area near Tukwila, east of the Green River, please take care of yourselves first and make sure you're getting yourself to high ground. And that is just an example of how, I think you mentioned earlier, we're in for the long haul on this, and we are not out of the woods, and that is certainly true. And this is a really good example of that. Our infrastructure has, for the most part, thankfully, across the state, held up remarkably well. But folks who are experts in these sorts of things have emphasized to me that this has not been a short event, like a day or two. This is a long event that we have literally on the Skagit River, for example. Those waters are going to reach major flood stage yet again here. We have more rain on the way. So the stress on our infrastructure is very apparent, and that's what we're seeing down, for example, along the Green River. Literally right now, as we're speaking, we're seeing lots of slides all around the state. Eastbound I-90, once again, I think a couple lanes have been closed. Highway 20, for example, is closed over a 50-mile stretch due to flooding, debris, landslides, you name it. So, the situation over numerous counties from Stehekin to Yakima to Lewis to Skagit, you name it, Pierce, where I was yesterday, it's pretty profound, and it's going to be a big challenge to dig out from this. I'm deeply thankful that so far, knock on wood, our prayers have been answered, that there's been no loss of life, due to these floods. That's remarkable. Really a minor miracle from my standpoint, given just the amount of flooding that we've experienced. But we're deeply thankful for that. That said, we know there are many, many Washingtonians who are away from their homes. Their homes have been severely damaged. Their homes have literally been lost. Some of you have probably seen the footage of a home literally being washed away by a river, the house literally floating down the river. So a lot of Washingtonians are under, and this is putting it mildly, a tremendous amount of stress and strain, financially, emotionally. And so, we're working together across governments and tribes and organizations to make sure we're working hard to get out resources to help people. We're working closely with the federal government and FEMA. I'm thankful that the federal government approved our request for an emergency declaration. Just give folks a sense of that, what that means. That's for like the short-term assistance with life-saving rescues that we need to do, clearing debris from highways, for example. That is separate, that emergency declaration is separate from what we'll be seeking soon for disaster relief. That's a separate request where the federal government, if approved, would help with literally like financial assistance, for example, with individuals who have had damage to their homes that their insurance is not covering. So that's a whole different process that we'll be going through and seeking support from the federal government for that, which we certainly hope they will grant, because there's going to be significant impacts financially, as well, to our state and to individuals all across the state. So again, I just will say we're so thankful to our first responders. I've met with many of them in recent days as I've been traveling around to impacted areas, and these are folks who are literally risking their lives. And that's why if you have an evacuation order or you get one, please follow that. Or if you know a loved one who's in that situation, we don't want to have to send first responders into a dangerous situation to rescue somebody. They'll do it because that's their job, but we want to avoid that. And just really appreciate everybody rallying together as we deal with a really challenging situation. And then, Kathy, what I'll do is I'll chat briefly about sort of the original plan for this call, which of course was some significant cuts, and that's an understatement, that we're going to experience and every other state's going to experience from the federal government as a result of a budget vote that was taken. This is something that's called often HR1, sort of the name of the bill, but there was a budget vote in Congress signed by the president that does many things. We're going to focus. Yep.
Governor Ferguson, let me just jump in and just do a little bit of a plug for people that are joining us, because we have several thousand people that just joined us. Hi,
Oh, wonderful.
everyone. Thank you for joining the AARP Teletown Hall. You are listening to Governor Bob Ferguson right now. If you have a question for Governor Bob Ferguson and or his staff, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. Sorry for the interruption, Governor. Go ahead.
No, interrupt me anytime. I realize that you got a lot of folks jumping in, so really happy to have you interrupt anytime. And for those who have joined, thanks so much. I was just chatting about the flooding situation, the emergency, and just making sure that folks are following those evacuation orders, and our deep thanks to first responders. So I'll chat briefly about this budget bill, what we call HR 1, and I'm just going to highlight a few of the impacts of that legislation, of that budget, that are going to impact literally hundreds of thousands of Washingtonians in pretty significant ways. So I'm going to keep this relatively high level, but I've got a team on. I've got folks like Jim and Grace and David who are able to answer questions you may have about this. But let me maybe set the stage for it in terms of what we're seeing. So a big impact we're seeing is going to be cuts to Medicaid here in Washington State. And again, this is all across the country, but I'm just focused obviously on Washington. And to give you all maybe a sense of scale, about 28% of our state budget is federal dollars. That's typical for states. A big chunk of all of our budgets come from the federal government. And Medicaid's a really good example. We call that Apple Health here, for example, part of our system. So Medicaid, the majority of the dollars we spend on Medicaid actually come from the federal government. And the cuts from this budget for Washington State alone will be $3 billion every single year. That is a massive amount of money, and we do not have $3 billion lying around to backfill that. So this creates huge challenges. And as I think, as many of you know, in the context of healthcare, nearly a quarter of Washingtonians use Medicaid. Many of those are older Washingtonians who are not eligible for Medicare. It also includes nearly half of the kids in our state. So that's your kids, your grandchildren, friends' kids and grandchildren as well. So Washingtonians, really depend on Medicaid for long-term care, including 3 and 5 nursing home residents and 3 and 8 individuals with disabilities. So one way I like to think of this is Medicaid really touches healthcare in every stage of life for Washingtonians, literally in every corner of our state as well. I think I also just will mention that Medicaid reimbursements are also critical for hospitals, particularly those in rural areas. And as I've traveled the state and all 39 counties many times, often when I'm traveling in rural areas, I hear about access to healthcare as being a critical need. So about 25% of all reimbursements received by hospitals, for example, in Eastern Washington, come from Medicaid. So these are huge impacts for those hospitals as well, because fewer folks on Medicaid means lower reimbursements, and that puts those facilities that rely on them at financial risk as well. So, stated another way, the cuts are going to have huge impacts not only on the Washingtonians who rely on Medicaid, but also to our access to hospital care, nursing home care, and long-term care. The other thing I just want to mention briefly, Kathy, and by all means jump in and interrupt anytime, but I'll briefly mention that Congress, as you probably know, has not yet reauthorized premium tax credits that help make health coverage much, much more affordable. So that inaction, that failure to do that on these tax credits risks healthcare affordability literally for tens of thousands of Washingtonians who rely on these tax credits to cover the cost of health plans through the private health benefit exchange. So again, I don't want to put too many numbers out there, but just to give a sense of scale, currently nearly 300,000 Washingtonians are enrolled in private health care plans through the health benefit exchange. And at least 80,000 Washingtonians can only afford their private health care plans through the exchange because of these tax credits that come from the federal government. So if those credits go away, so do their health care plans. And even for those who manage to keep their health coverage, those Washingtonians will see their costs increase dramatically starting very soon, starting on January 1st. So this is another huge challenge. Washingtonians who use these tax credits, just to give you a sense of scale, save an average of more than $1,300 every single year in premiums. So At a time when costs across the board are rising, I believe we should be making healthcare more affordable, not less affordable. And that's why what's happening back in Washington, D.C. in Congress is so critical for so many Washingtonians. Last thing, and I'll be real quick on this, another program that's impacted by recent federal policies is called SNAP. That's what's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, referred to as SNAP. And about 1 in 3 of the nearly 1 million Washingtonians who rely on SNAP benefits for food are older adults or have disabilities. And for many, it's, this assistance, this food assistance is literally the difference between putting food on the table or going hungry. You saw earlier this month where those benefits, when the government closure happened, those benefits stopped going out the door. So in Washington State, we responded by, I sent out millions of dollars to food banks to help supplement them, because we knew people were going to food banks who were no longer getting their SNAP benefits. So under the new federal policy, everybody who uses SNAP will see their benefits reduced. And we believe our estimates now are more than 100,000 Washingtonians could lose benefits altogether. So how many depends on, how the federal government defines certain work requirements and eligibility factors in the coming months. So we don't have all the detailed guidance yet, but it's clear this is going to have profound impacts for, again, hundreds of thousands of Washingtonians. So just as I wrap up here, Kathy, I wish I had better news. I realize kind of what I'm sharing from the emergency we're facing on the flood to these cuts from the federal government, is not welcome news, to put it mildly. But, in Washington, we're going to do everything we can to deal with both of these crises, with what's going on with the floods, but also on what's happening at the federal government. It's going to be very, very difficult. We have our own budget challenges right now. We had a $16 billion budget shortfall in Washington State when I became governor this year. That was a shortfall I inherited. We're facing additional shortfalls next year as I'm putting together a budget right now. So we've already got our existing budget challenges, but this is compounded in a significant way with these cuts from the federal government here in Washington, all across the country. So I just appreciate all of your interest on being on this call. I'm so thankful to my team who's working hard, and they're the experts who can really answer any questions about what these cuts might mean to you and how you might be impacted. And again, I just so appreciate Kathy, AARP, for a chance to come on and chat with you. And I'm sorry I've got to jump off early, but we literally have levees in crisis right now, so it's a life-threatening situation. I know you all understand I need to turn to that right now and work with my team on that situation.
We absolutely understand, Governor. Could you take one call, or are you really
Sure.
need to?
Let's do one real quick, and I'll see. Yeah.
Would you like to do one? We have several questions coming in related to disaster response, and we
Sure.
have several questions related to property tax. Your choice.
Well, since the flooding situation is so paramount right now, let's go for that.
Okay.
Although I will say for property tax, if someone had a question about that, I did at a media event not too long ago make clear that, hey, I'm not going to support any increase to property taxes in the budget this year. So just so folks know that I've already made that intention very clear to the legislature.
And again, if you just joined the call, this is the AARP Teletown Hall with Governor Bob Ferguson. And if you would like to ask a call, unfortunately the governor has to jump off, but he has several staff, and we have several staff from the emergency response and National Guard working on the flood response. So they can answer a lot of your questions. There are several questions about how to seek assistance. So if you want to ask a question, get resources, information, or to share a complaint or concern that you have about the rising costs of living expenses, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. That's *3 on your telephone keypad. You will be put in a queue and in contact with an AARP staff person who will take your question and put your question into the queue. Again, press *3 on your telephone keypad if you would like to ask a question. So the first question we have, this is from May in Bothell. May, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah.
May, are you there?
I am. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Sure
go
can.
ahead and ask your question to Governor Ferguson.
Governor Ferguson, I have a question. What are you doing about fallen trees that destroy roofs in the county?
Yeah, thanks so much for that question.
I had a tree fall on my house October 25th, and my insurance company wouldn't cover it. They told me I could get 10 more years out of my roof. But when the roofers came and they took the roof apart, there was nothing on. I didn't have a roof, not a real roof. I had particle board, was about an eighth of an inch thick, and I had brown paper under that. And I had shingles that were defective. Oh, they were Owen Corning shingles. They were defective that the roofer that I used 4 years ago put on the house. And I didn't know that because, number one, I couldn't get up on the roof to look at it. And number two, I just found out I had to build a roof from scratch. So they had to take it all the way down to my frame. It ended up costing me $26,000 to get it done the right way. And I really thank God that North Creek put on my roof because now I actually have heat on the second floor of my house. But, is there any relief for that? What could somebody do?
So, May, thank you so much for that. I'm so sorry you're going through that. So you said, just so I was understanding correctly, you said a tree fell on your roof of your house back a couple months ago. Is that right?
October 25th, to be exact, when we had that really bad and high winds again, just like we're having now.
Yes.
I live next to a green belt, okay? And the HOA I live in doesn't really take care of the green belt. And because it's federally protected, I have no idea who takes care of it, okay? So,
I see.
Yeah. It was one of those trees, and I have two more that I think are going to fall on the front of my roof now.
Right. No. So first, I'm sorry you're going through that and that expense, but so I don't know. I'm not an expert on exactly what resources are available, but I'm sure the folks at ARP can get your information. Is that right, Kathy?
Yes, absolutely, May. We can follow up with you and get your information because. Also, the Attorney General's office, it's important to know that there's a resource to file a complaint. It's not necessarily means that the Attorney General's office will respond, but they want to know about these concerns and these issues. And then also, we have additional resources. There's a homeowners resource organization that also works with individual homeowners on property issues just like this.
Exactly. And one thing I'll add to that, May, so if you don't mind providing your information to ARP and do let ARP know, hey, have you reached out to the county yet, for example? I can check, once we have your information, my team can check to see if there are some state resources that might be helpful in this situation. Again, I would need no more details about your situation, but if you don't mind sharing your information with ARP, I'm sure Kathy can get that to my team and we can see what might be possible to try and help you in this really sorry you're going through this really challenging situation.
Well, thank you very much, May. And Governor, I understand you have to go. There is another question about sandbags or sandbanks in Covington Creek. So, but I know you have to get to the work at hand in responding to this crisis. And again, appreciation for all the work that you've done.
Thanks so much. And again, once again, for those who may have joined later, if you're in the Tukwila area, I think it's east of the Green River, there's literally, a breach in the levee there. There's a flash flood warning that they say is potentially life-threatening. So if anyone is, on this call in that situation or knows someone there, please be aware of the situation. It's pretty serious. That's what I'm going to turn to right now. And I just really appreciate all of you understanding that I've got to jump off a little early. But my team is on. They can definitely answer questions, and just so appreciate all of you as we get through a really challenging time. Thank you again so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. So again, we just heard from Governor Ferguson. We have several staff people from Governor Ferguson's office on the call right now. If you would like to ask a question, press *3 on your telephone keypad. That's *3. We have several questions we're going to take. There are several questions on property taxes. And again, the governor mentioned that he's not going to adjust or increase the property tax. But we know that seniors, there is a senior property tax exemption that a lot of individuals don't necessarily access, or if they do, it's complex. So we have Jim from Olympia on the call. Jim, would you like to ask your question?
Sure would. Thank you, Kathy. My name is Jim, and I'm speaking for myself and my family. I wanted to bring the governor's office, the attention of the governor's office to a collision that's taking place currently between state and federal law, which threatens low-income senior citizens with the loss of their homes. Many of Washington's low-income seniors are enrolled in the state's property tax exemption program, which the legislature created to reduce taxes and keep the seniors in their homes. However, when the seniors turn 73, and I fall into that category, the federal required mandatory distribution rules, or they're called RMD for short, kick in and require the seniors to involuntarily withdraw large portions of their retirement savings, which not only increases their income taxes, but also can knock them out of the state's property tax exemption program. When this happens, the seniors' property taxes can increase by up to 1,000%. And this is an annual, after 73, this is an annual event, pulling out more money. So there is a simple solution to the problem, which would be to add a provision to state law that requires RMD withdrawals to not be income under the state's property tax exemption program. So that's sort of a long-winded way of getting to the question of this reform is much needed to keep seniors in their homes, and I hope that the governor's office will support it.
Kathy, this is David. Can I respond to that?
Sure, go ahead, David. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So first of all, thank you for the question or the comment. And before working for Governor Ferguson, I served in the legislature and am familiar with the senior property tax exemption. It was expanded, has been changed a few times over the years. It's a very important program. It's really important to keep seniors who have built up equity in their homes over time, but are living on fixed incomes to help them to stay in their homes so that they can manage the property tax in the state. This is the required distribution is a real issue. It's an issue not for me, but for people in my own family. I know about this a little bit. And so we will take a close look at that if there is a legislative solution. I'm not sure what exactly is being proposed, and there's a lot of complicating things about the fiscal implications of an adjustment like that. But we'll be, I'm sure, working with AARP and with other leaders in the legislature, the governor's office Governor Ferguson's team, and taking a look at that and see if there's some kind of adjustment that might make sense either now or in the near future. So we'll take a look at that, and I really appreciate you bringing that to Governor Ferguson's attention. I can see exactly the challenge that you have there.
Thank you, David, so much, and we just really appreciate your partnership. AARP has worked closely with David and the whole team in the governor's office, and these are exactly the kinds of issues. So if you have a similar type of issue and you want to ask that live on the Teletown Hall, please press *3 on your telephone keypad to ask a question. That's *3. So it could be about the cost of living, like we just heard about the senior property tax exemption. I want to go now to, let's see, Susan in Falls City. Susan, you have a question related to road repairs in Snoqualmie.
Yes. My question is, what can we expect in terms of assistance for the farmers in the Snoqualmie Valley who have been impacted by the floods from the river? Every time we have floods, we lose our farmland. So I'm wondering what the state plans are for help in the floodplain. And I'm sure it's the same situation in Mount Vernon and any place the Sky or the Stille have also flooded. It's not just the Snoqualmie.
Who wants to take that question? Is that Holly,
This is Jim Capriva
David,
with the governor's staff.
or Jim?
I think Holly
Okay.
and I can split that up. Holly, are you on still? I
Yes,
think the
I'm
general
here.
message, the general message that we've heard yet is we are not yet shifted into recovery mode. As you heard from the levee break today, just now, this situation remains ongoing. Severe winds are cutting off power in parts of the state. Levee breaks are threatening communities anew. This is very much an active response. As part of the governor's emergency declaration affirmed by the federal government, we are receiving some assistance on the response. But the recovery phase will be new, and of course, agricultural impacts, among so many other impacts, including water treatment and septic and wells and roads. There are so many categories of damage across such a wide area that the recovery phase will be long and difficult, to quote State Emergency Management Director Robert Ezell. Ali, anything else to say?
Yeah, Jim, I want to just echo that is correct. And the recovery road is long, and there's a lot of expectation management that goes with it. While our hearts go out to everybody that's experiencing this, if you have damage, the one thing I would say right now is take pictures, document everything. That will help us when the recovery process does get going, so we can have photos and things like that we need. And you would report those to your county. And if you need help finding your county emergency management, I'm happy to share my personal email at work here or our public education email so I can help you get in touch with the right people. But you'll want to document it, talk to your insurance companies, and then as that recovery process gets going, we get those to the right people and the right organizations to help.
Great, thank you so much. And again, you are on a call right now with staff from Governor Ferguson's office and also from the Emergency Management and National Guard, a Representative Holly Stark, who has been incredible and is a huge ally with AARP, and I appreciate all of her work that she's been doing. I wanted to take another question that is related to, again, kind of the broader impacts for the community. But again, if you would like to ask a question of the governor's staff or related to the emergency management and response to the current floods and winds, press *3 on your telephone keypad. Please press *3 on your telephone keypad if you have a question. So we're going to jump to Ed in Bellevue. Ed in Bellevue has a question related to just the overall financial impacts on older adults. Ed?
Well, first of all, I want to express my appreciation to the governor for his attention to this emergency. We're very fortunate that he's really right on it. But I want to say prior to this, so many senior citizens were really talking about how hard it is for them to stay in their homes because of the inflationary pressures that are stacking up against them. Many senior citizens rely on Social Security as their primary source of income, and in some cases it's their sole source of income. And as you know, COLA helped a little bit, going up 2.8%, but was really diminished by the 9.7% Medicare increase. In addition, there's other economic pressures. Last year, Puget Sound Energy electric bills went up an average of 12%, and Seattle Light projects at least a 5% increase in 2026. Natural gas, not much better, as it increased 10.6% in 2025. Insurance costs not helping. In 2025, auto insurance increase was among the highest in the country, and home insurance grew by 19.5% in Washington State. Our state is helping with the property tax relief program. It's utilized by over 100,000 Washingtonians, but over 150,000 more qualify but are not enrolled. My question is, what can the state do to simplify the process? So many Washingtonians say it's just too complex. Can the state help to make this a simpler process so that those who deserve property tax relief can get it? Thank you.
Kathy, this is David. Why don't I can give that a shot here. So first off, thank you, Ed, for the question, the comments. And Governor Ferguson is acutely aware of the pressures that people are feeling financially right now. I mean, this is obviously the talk of the country. It's the talk in Washington, and we know that so many things have gone up, and I think you'll see some things that we're going to try to do as we roll out our budget in the coming days on affordability. In particular, on on health insurance. It's going to be difficult because of some of the changes that they're making at the federal level, but we're going to do what we can. We're working closely, for example, if any of you are in the on the ACA exchange, they are, while it's a difficult situation, they're doing some things from a technical standpoint to try to keep some of those premiums more in line than they otherwise would have been if they didn't make some adjustments in terms of how they're approaching the plans, silver plans in particular, that are being offered. But on your question about property tax and having more people apply for it, one of the things that Governor Ferguson has done is sign an executive order early in his term. I think it was 25. It was in January, February of this year, directing state agencies to provide more information to us to streamline some of their permitting and other agency processes. So these kinds of things where people are kind of caught up in the bureaucracy, where things can be more simple. And I've heard Governor Ferguson say specifically on many occasions that he believes in the power of government to help people, but he also doesn't want government to get in the way of helping people when it's needed. And this, what you described, is something that is, if it's not working the way it should, we need to go in and try to fix it. So we've got an executive order. We have a team that is led by former TV reporter Jesse Jones. Many of you know he's sort of a star part of our administration. He's leading a team on trying to reform some of these processes in our state government. So I'm hopeful that we can work with Department of Revenue to make that a simpler process if there's some things that we need to do. And we'll be taking a look at that, and really appreciate you raising the issue, because I know it's important, and that would really help a lot of seniors if we could make some adjustments, make it easier, make sure that people don't get caught up in the bureaucratic morass, if you will. So we'll take a look at that, and thank you for raising the question to us.
So thank you, David, again for that response. And to all of you joining us right now, we are hearing from Governor Ferguson's staff and taking your questions about everything related to affordability, cost of health care, cost of housing, issues that are impacting your life here in Washington State, concerns. And because of the recent floods and the windstorms that we have had here in Washington State, we are in a crisis mode. The governor had to leave the call early to go respond to, a potentially another possible breach of a canal, and that channels water away from residential communities, highways, our roads, our schools, stores, everything. So this disaster is not beyond kind of the disaster mode. So if you have a question, if your family is experiencing any kinds of impacts, we also have disaster response staff on the call that can take your questions by pressing *3. So you can press *3 on the telephone keypad. So I am going to jump as people continue to ask their questions. I have a general consumer protection question from Connie. And one of the things that I was going to lead in about Governor Ferguson is when he was in the Attorney General's office. In 2017, AARP worked with him to toughen penalties and extend statutes for financial exploitation of vulnerable adults. And we worked to actually create a new crime called the theft from vulnerable adults to better deter elder fraud. And this, again, was as Attorney General Ferguson had a consumer protection division that secured hundreds of thousands of recoveries for frauds and scams that took place that impacted specifically older adults. So again, we really appreciate all the work that the governor's office has done. So I'd like to take Connie's question. It's vague here in the notes. It says consumer protection. So Connie, would you like to ask your question?
Sure. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a survivor of a 2024 2-month scam. I liquidated a huge sum of money to buy cryptocurrency and gold, which of all are untraceable. And regarding fraud, we know that people over 60 incur the greatest losses compared to the other age groups. And from the FTC in 2024, Washington State fraud was reported at $302 million. And we know a lot of fraud goes unreported. So I've had limited success. I've returned to businesses and financial institutions with specific scam prevention changes, like adding gold bar serial numbers to the invoice so they could be traceable. The responses they generally blame the victim, and the businesses and institutions have little commitment to preventing fraud, and the problem is really siloed with them. They don't see it as a large issue. So I'm grateful for all the work Governor Ferguson has done on this, but I think things need to be better. I'd like to recommend creating a coalition of financial institutions, gold vendors, cryptocurrency providers, store owners with Bitcoin machines, and scam victims to address fraud prevention. And I know that the Washington FBI is working upstream on this, working on gold fraud investigations to track where the money goes.
Connie,
So
this is Kathy.
Uh-huh.
This is Kathy McCall with AARP. Thank you so much for your question. So AARP runs the Fraud Watch Network, and we have a lot of fraud fighters that also work on fraud and scams. And one of the issues that we're working on in terms of legislation is actually regulating crypto ATMs or crypto kiosks. AARP is not against crypto, it's just the crypto ATMs. We're seeing older adults that are putting in thousands and thousands of dollars into these machines. And AARP has been successful in other states in providing regulation. So I just wanted to let you know that we are also tracking and monitoring a lot of these issues. So really appreciate your question. So I wanted just to share a little bit about what AARP is doing. I'd love to hear more from the governor's office about some of these consumer protection pieces.
So Jim, again, I can just speak on a very general level about the governor's history as former attorney general, filing suit against fraudsters in a number of capacities, and just talk about something new we got the other day from GoFundMe Corporate. That's the entity that conducts a lot of fundraisers and charity drives that you can donate to online. And they, in response to flooding, sent our office a whole description of their efforts to try and detect and discontinue fraudulent fundraising campaigns. And they have a list of safe donation, like GoFundMe corporate verified drives that people can donate to help the flood victims. But, one thing that you'll hear from any regulator, Department of Financial Institutions, Attorney General's office, the governor himself, is the stunning variety of techniques and tactics that people will try to do to separate you from what you've worked your whole life to earn. And the incredible eccentricity and complexity and inherent authenticity of these scams is just immeasurable. And so, a general caution is advised and at all times. I can, of course, share that link of verified GoFundMe accounts. We can also speak to some of the fine work that's being done by authentic, credible charitable organizations such as the American Red Cross, establishing shelters for evacuees across the state. But in terms of your situation, Connie, I'm very, very sorry to hear that you were a victim of such a scam. And just know that AARP has been in touch with us about crypto ATMs specifically, and across the state, AGO, DFI, Governor's Office, there are a number of people, including the legislature, committed to reduction and prevention of scams like that.
Jim, you brought an excellent point to bear, because during this current fraud and crisis, during this current flood and crisis that we're experiencing right now, this is when I call what they are the trolls. They come out, the fraudsters and the scammers. And so people, you all need to be careful, even if you're not impacted by the flood. Like Jim mentioned, somebody, well-intended might be asking to raise money for, rebuilding a home or, caring for somebody's horses that are displaced or what have you. Be very cautious. Double check, with other verified, validated sources that those organizations are legitimate. You can go on to the Secretary of State's website to check if certain nonprofits are registered in the state. So be very careful, because I know our hearts break when we see the images of people who have lost homes, and especially children, and especially during this holiday season, that you are touched and your heart is broken by what you see. But before you make that gift, go onto the Secretary of State site, double check that nonprofit exists, make sure you validate before you, turn over your hard-earned money. Even if it's with good intent and love, you need to just make sure that you are protecting yourself and validating that organization. The other thing is a lot of consumer protection is going to need to be in place to protect people from, like one of the earlier callers, I thought she was going to talk about construction fraud. And a lot of people that come out to say that they can fix your roof, and she quoted a price of $25,000. Somebody might come out and say they can do it for $5,000. Be very, very leery of that, and make sure you check and validate that business is licensed to operate in this state. So again, when it comes to the flood and the current response right now, be very cautious of both charitable giving and of construction or contractors or other businesses seeking to provide assistance when in fact they might be only looking to seek access to your pocketbook. So I'd like to go ahead and maybe take one more question as we start to wind down here. We have more questions on the property tax exemption, but we also have a question regarding the gas tax. And I hear a lot about the gas tax on older adults. I hear a lot about the cost of car insurance and automobile insurance as well for older adults on fixed incomes, especially those that don't drive as often. But the gas tax is one that I hear about a lot. So Ray and Kelso, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ray.
Well, I was wondering about the gas tax. How come it's so high? One of the highest ones in the United States. And none of the I-5 roads are getting fixed. The road between Battleground and Richfield are like driving a cow pasture. And there's no way nobody getting it fixed.
Thanks, Ray, for your question. David, do you want to take that call?
Yeah, I'm getting all the good ones, the tough ones today. So happy to respond. So first of all, Ray, thank you for the question, and understand the concerns about our gas tax in Washington. We it's true. We do have one of the higher gas taxes in the country. I think that it's felt in the legislature and previous governors, and have felt that it's important to make sure that we have proper funding to maintain our roads and our infrastructure and our marine highways. But it is, it is a challenge. It's not the only factor. The only thing that factors into the high cost at the pump. There's a lot of other issues in terms of supply, global supply, and things of that. But it is a factor, and I think we all need to be mindful of that. And I know Governor Ferguson is mindful of that. So I think what you're going to see from Governor Ferguson in his transportation budget, and I know he thinks this is very important, is to make sure that we're using those gas tax dollars to do better on preservation and maintenance of our roads. I kind of know that's a point of emphasis that he's made. So, we just got into office this year, but we've got to take the issues on, and your point's well taken. If the road from Battleground to, I think you said Battleground, around Battleground is not working well. That's something that we need to know about, and we need to get our teams at DOT on it. But preservation and maintenance is going to be very important to this governor. It's really, I'd say, the main point of emphasis, and we're going to try to to make sure that those gas tax dollars are being spent more wisely. And I think the people, you all deserve that as taxpayers, and I know Governor Ferguson is going to try to improve the situation for you. So thank you for raising that, and I will be sure to make sure that he and I'm not one of our transportation advisors, but I will make sure that the transportation team knows of your concern, because I'm sure it's something that many other people share, and we'll make sure that Governor Ferguson as well, who had to jump off, is aware of that, and I appreciate very much you raising it with us.
So David,
again,
I'll chime in with one more thing, Kathy. From across the state, we've been hearing about the Wishkah River, the Wishkah Bridge in Aberdeen, and the Fox Island Bridge, and many of you in Buckley and Enumclaw went through the closure of the White River Bridge from that overhead strike. We have 300 bridges over 75 years old, and apparently a road by Battleground that's a little bit like driving through a cow pasture, I just heard. And so that's exactly what David's talking about, the preservation into existing assets to make your experience driving around Kelso, Battleground, Enumclaw, Aberdeen a little smoother wherever you are.
I appreciate that, Jim. Thank you. And David, thank you very much for that. I know it is challenging on so many levels. I wanted to go ahead and kind of give you all an opportunity for some closing comments. I first wanted to, we have Claire Grant from the Department of Health and Holly Stark from the Washington Military Department that's managing the emergency response and National Guard. Are there just one tip or thing that you would like to let people know about this current situation? Go ahead, Claire.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Claire Grant. I am the Resilience and Preparedness Strategist at Washington Department of Health. I'm going to actually do 2 tips really quickly. I'll squeeze them both in really fast. First, as Governor Ferguson mentioned earlier, if you are asked to evacuate, please do so, both for the safety of yourself and for our first responders, and always prioritize your personal safety over property. My second tip is always have a go bag ready. So this is a emergency go bag is something that you would have next to your door, maybe like a backpack or something with extra food, extra water, your prescription medications, anything that you might need if you are asked to evacuate and you're not able to return to your home for several days. So again, we want everybody to be safe and to evacuate safely, and to remember to take the necessary equipment and medical needs that you have if you are asked to evacuate.
Claire, thank you so much. I think the reminder about prescription drugs is so important because oftentimes people leave without their prescription medications, and then if they don't have the prescription number or they don't have the insurance, like the insurance hasn't kicked in for the refill, what have you. So I think that's an incredibly important reminder. Thank you. And Holly, what would be your top 2?
Hi, thank you, guys. I'm Holly Stark, and I am with the Washington Emergency Management Division. My day job is Outreach Program Manager, and my response role is a Public Information Officer. My tip would probably be to sign up for local alerts and have multiple ways to get alerted to disasters. So in line with what our Department of Health was saying, if you get those evacuation orders, they usually come in levels, so you can get started and getting ready and not waiting until it's a little bit too late. If you go to mil.wa.gov/alerts, you can find your county and sign up for local alerts there. In line with the idea about getting scammed, this is a really great way to make sure that you're getting information from the most trusted, local, and on-the-ground source. It's opt-in. They will not spam you, and they will not be scamming you. So it's a great way to get information via your phone or the internet. And then just make sure you have something else in case the power is out. So some sort of a radio, NOAA weather radio or a crank radio where you can hear local on the ground information. It's really critical.
Thank you so much, Holly. I appreciate that. And those alerts are fabulous. I have one for King County and one for Pierce County. So thank you. And then I'd like to have the governor's team, Jim, Grace, and David. Closing thoughts. Grace, we have not heard from you, but you have such an important portfolio. Do you just want to share a little bit of things that people should keep in mind as we enter into session and or just around, as people age and the work that the governor's doing to highlight?
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I'm Grace, and I work on human services for the governor. And so, yes, we are looking at, as the governor mentioned, the impacts of some of these federal changes and how we will be trying to evaluate maintaining as many services as possible. And I know that this population that's on the phone, in particular, there are some pretty unique impacts of some of the federal changes, and including for those of you who are younger. If you are accessing, the SNAP program or the Medicaid program, there will be some new work requirements. For those of you, many of you probably already are working, but this is the first time that the state is going to have to be tracking some of that. So you may see some changes at the community services office. And so as we are trying to figure out how to implement some of these changes, you'll be, asked for more information. And so just flagging that some of those are coming from the federal government, and we are really trying to assess how to make the experience of providing community services as accessible as possible, and to try to preserve as much of our important programming as possible. And we're going to see how that goes through the legislative session. I guess that's what I can say for now.
And David and Jim, any further thoughts or closing remarks as we wind down here?
Well,
I'll just
this
say
is
for
David.
me.
Go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Jim. Yep.
All right. I'll just say thanks for the prepared questions. I took verbatim notes of everyone's questions, so we'll definitely review that and report back to Kathy with any follow-ups that we have for them to post as necessary on the website. I know that's hard. We dropped some links, for example, Holly's alert system. So any links, any follow-ups, we'll make sure to make sure that Kathy gets on the AARP website. And thanks again for just the high-quality, prepared, informed, statistically analyzed questions. It really helps a lot.
Well, I just want to say, yes, thank you, Kathy. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you on behalf of Governor Ferguson for everyone listening in and asking and engaging with our office. It's really helpful, I know, to his team, and I know to the governor personally, to hear what's on people's minds. And I think, secondly, just know that we have some folks from Emergency Management Services and the Military Department and National Guard here, and I think on behalf of Governor Ferguson, we just want to say thank you, and I hope all of you who have been listening in will thank our emergency management people and our National Guard. They do an incredible job in very difficult circumstances, and they're just so professional, and we're really, really appreciative of what they're doing in these very difficult times. And then the last thing I was going to say is, we didn't talk a lot about it, but if you're having issues with health care or your health insurance, we're in the middle of open enrollment right now, and so if you're below the Medicare age, let's say between 50 and 64, and you don't have access to health insurance from another source like an employer or or as veterans insurance or what have you, you can go to wahealthplanfinder.org, and you can work through that website and get access to health insurance in our state. And while we're obviously concerned about the rising costs, there are some things that they're trying to do to mitigate that and to help people, and we have some specific programs in place that might be helpful to you, either to purchase a private plan or if you end up qualifying for Apple Health, then they can help you there. There's also a tools and resources a site on their website where you can talk or work with navigators in your community that can also help you. So that's just one practical thing if you end up in a problem with your health insurance that we hope everyone will take advantage of, because we want to make sure that everybody remains covered. It's really, really important, and we know it's especially hard for people who are sometimes in that early, just before formal retirement Medicare age. We know that's really, really important. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, David, for that reminder. And again, I'll repeat, it's the Washington Health Plan Finder, and the open enrollment period started November 1st and ends January 15th. So you can go on to Washington State Health Plan Finder and shop for plans. You can put in your age, if there's any kinds of certain medications you take. There's all sorts of ways to look, and you can look by county, what's available in your county in terms of health plans. It's a fantastic tool. So again, for individuals that are 50 to 64 pre-Medicare, it's an incredibly valuable tool. We also have the Cascade Care program as well here in Washington State. And then also, as mentioned earlier, Apple Health. So if there's individuals that are struggling with their health care, or they're concerned they've lost a job, there's some tremendous resources available. So I wanted to just give a final thank you to the governor's staff. I also wanted to let you know that a couple people mentioned that there's going to be information on our website. You can go to aarp.org/WA, that's aarp.org/WA, or you can call us at 866-227-7457. That's 866-227-7457. And we have a page listing all sorts of various emergency resources available to you. There's also information on caregiving. So please, again, go to aarp.org/WA. And again, thank you to the governor's staff. Thank you to the Department of Health, to Claire Grant, Holly Stark, with the military department. And again, to Governor Ferguson, please extend our heartfelt appreciation for him for doing this hard work during these tough times. So again, thank you, and this is the end of the call.